Hiya folks, it's finally happening. We're going to combine projects 2A and 2B, as well as homework 4, into our mapping application, Bearmaps. Now, I'm not going to focus much on the big picture of this project. I'm actually in this video only going to focus on setup because there's a lot of things we need to do. So I'm going to start totally from scratch from my blank repository. You're going to start from later on, but I'm just going to do it from scratch, just in case you have to start over for some reason. And I'm going to do the following. Okay, I'm going to add the remote. And I'm going to git pull skeleton master, as usual. And once I've done this, I have all my skeleton files. I go to proj2c, I can see Bearmaps files, and so forth. Now, one thing I need to do also is populate this library, which is going to hold all of the jar files and data files we need for project 2. Okay. So to do that, I'm going to go to lab 2. So in lab 2, recall, we did this submodule thing. Git submodule update init, and I'm going to do it from my repository folder. And so now it is downloading the entire library for spring 2019. Now when you did this, it wasn't quite so much data. This is 100 megabytes. And the reason is that what I've just done is downloaded a blob of data, which includes all of the Bearmaps data. Okay? Now in your case, what you may have done, if you're not doing it totally from scratch, is doing a git pull from this library directory here. So now that I've done so, if I look around, I see in my data folder, there is words.txt, but nothing else. And that may mimic what happens on your computer. That is, after you've done git pull skeleton master and done git pull, you may find that the library spring 19 data folder does not have a project 2c images folder or a proj2c xml. Look, I don't have it, right? I only have words. I don't have the things that it claims I should have. So we suggest one thing. You could say git pull here. It yells at you and it says you are currently not on a branch. Okay. Well, the issue I have here is that I have not. I'm going to use these commands that it tells me. So if any of them are missing, what I should do is go in this folder, say git submodule update init, and then say git checkout master. And that, it's a little git mystery. Don't worry too much about it. It's not super important. But basically now it's going to put my library directory on the master branch. Right now it's not on any kind of branch. So when I do this, now finally the file should appear. Now again, I don't care that you understand these details. We actually haven't told you enough for you to understand them, but at least the commands are there that you can type in. And I will now let it go. So I'll probably edit this out because what it's doing right now is it's taking all that data I downloaded earlier, those 105 megabytes, and it's unpacking them into the individual files that I'll need. And so in a few minutes, once all those files have been written, we will talk a little more. All right, it's done. Okay, so we are now, now that we've done these steps, I'm going to again say ls, and this time I see that I have the project 2c XML, I have the project 2c images, and so forth. So there's a bunch of files that I downloaded. Okay, and those will be important to us in this project. Alrighty, so that's the first part of our setup, is getting the skeleton files. So next up, let's talk about how to import the project. So what I'm going to do is just the usual thing. So I'm going to open up IntelliJ, and in this case, since I'm at the front page, I'm going to say import project, as opposed to file new project from existing sources. So since I'm here, I'll say import project, and then I will go to my folder, which is Bearmap demo, spring 2019, project 2c. Okay. So the spec says go and pick the project 2c folder as usual. Okay, so I do that. Next, 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 next. All right. So now what I've done is I have all my files, all the things in Bearmaps. You'll see some homework 4 stuff, some proj 2ab stuff, and then proj 2c is all the new things. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is I need to import the special project 2c libraries that are in the JavaLib project 2c folder. So to do that, I'm going to go to File, Project Structure. Then I'm going to click Libraries, and then this plus sign, and then Java. And then I'm going to go to Library Spring 19, Java lib, proj2c, and I'm going to click on this folder, press OK, and it says Library proj2c will be added to the selected modules. So I've just kind of skipped all the steps here, but everything I've just done is literally what's in the spec. So I'm going to click OK one more time, and I've now imported the libraries. Okay. Why did I do that? Oh, well, if I don't do that, then my code won't compile, because it won't be able to find the libraries that it needs. Okay, so we have now added our libraries to project2c. So the next thing we need to do is mark the static directory. Now you might not actually have to do this, but it's possible that if you don't, you'll run into trouble later. So let's just do it anyway. So I'm going to go to project structure. The strange thing is some TAs have had to do this and others have not. So I'm going to go to project structure, modules, project2c, and then here I see the static folder, and I'm going to right click on it, and then I'm going to say sources. Okay? So now you'll see that it's in blue, and you'll also see that the change happened over here as well. You can actually also, by the way, mark it in this left bar, but we just did it the other way. Okay. So now you'll see that this folder is blue, and that may prevent an annoying issue later. All right. So last thing I need to do is, before I verify, is I'm going to set my language level. So you may not actually have to do this. If I go to File, Project Structure, go up to Project, and here I'm setting my language level to 11. Now in my case, on my computer, because I'm using an older version of IntelliJ, I cannot actually pick 11. So if you only have 10 in the list, that's fine, but you guys have a newer version of IntelliJ than I do, so pick level 11. It doesn't really matter. All that means is that I'm allowed to use language features introduced into Java more recently. Okay, so lots of mysterious stuff in this project, but don't sweat it. That's just how big projects go. Okay? So now, finally, we're going to verify that all of our setup stuff is working properly. To do that, I'm going to open up mapserver.java, which is located in the project2c package. Here it is. It's very short. And then I'm going to run its main method. Actually, I'm just going to do it up here. Run mapserver. When I run it, I see a bunch of text pop up, or you should. It should look very similar to this. There should be no errors. And at this point, what is happening is my computer is now acting as a web server. And if it receives a request from a web browser, it will react. So let's try that out real quick. Okay. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the static page here, static page part of the static.page folder, or /page folder. And what I'm going to do is click on map.html and then say open in browser and click Chrome. And at this point, the mapping application opens up, and this is all just JavaScript and HTML. This is not your Java code running. This is all web browser stuff. But what happened here is when it ran, it passed along a request to our program. So you'll notice some text popped up. It says, since you haven't implemented raster API handler.process request, nothing is displayed in your browser. And in particular, it says something is missing. Okay? And that's no surprise, because I haven't implemented anything. And so basically what's happening here is that our Google Maps imitation application is just stuck. It wants image information, but we're not giving any, because we haven't written any code. Let's get a firmer sense of how your code is interacting with the web browser. What's happening is the web browser is sending a request to your code, and your code's not reacting properly. So let's go into raster API handler. And what this does is it handles requests from the web browser for image information. Now you don't need to know about how all this stuff works. Again, it's way more complicated than we expect you guys to understand. You just need to modify certain pieces of it. So if I go into the raster API handler and go to this process request method, if I uncomment these lines of code, and then I stop and restart my web server, now when I refresh my web browser page, I see something different happens. In particular, now when this method gets called, because the web browser has sent information to my program, I get, hey, want to know the parameters given by the web browser? They are, and this is the request. This is our web browser's request for what it wants to see. It wants to see these latitudes and longitudes, and this is the size of my browser window in pixels. So it's 1094 pixels wide by 798 tall, or at least the view window is. if I resize this window, you'll notice that these numbers change. I decreased the height, right? And the width changed a little bit. And that is, crucially, how your program is going to deliver the information that it needs. So it's pretty cool that this intelligent client here is able to pass information to your browser. And so in this project, what you're going to do is return better results than just an empty hash map. Now, I'm not going to say anything more about how to approach the project because I want to step back and talk about the bigger picture of what you're ultimately trying to build, and then I'll give some tips about how to get started.